In 2000, the Scottish education system was revolutionised with the introduction of the Macron Agreement. With the agreement came an obligatory 35 hours of CPD for every teacher, and the introduction of chartered or expert teacher status, a master's degree seen by many as a way up the career ladder without having to leave the classroom. In this programme we'll meet two teachers who went down the chartered teacher route, but first we'll hear from Jim O'Brien, Vice Dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Edinburgh and an expert on Scottish CPD.
CPD for Scottish teachers embraces a number of opportunities. Chartered teacher is obviously one of them, where they will get a formal qualification, a related salary increase. But the other approaches to CPD may well happen in school. Teachers may go to conferences, out to courses. But I think more and more people are realising that CPD, or professional development, is not just about going on a course. It's about doing different types of things differently. It's about working with one's peers, experimenting in the curriculum, and its success has been underpinned by an awareness that you have to have a whole lot of bottom-up issues here, rather than a top-down, we know best and you're all going to have CPD done to you, which unfortunately has been a model in the past, which we're moving away from, I would suggest, quite dramatically. The concept of chartered teacher came about because initially we thought in this country that we would want to try and emulate some of the things which happen elsewhere, and expert teacher status was viewed as something which, well, if we can keep teachers in classrooms and we can, or they can, enhance their expertise, then that would be a good thing for our system. So chartered teachers for us is an expert teacher.
I believe in teaching. I believe in classroom teachers. I don't think there's anybody more important. And I didn't want to go into management, because the minute you go into management, that removes you from the classroom. Every stage up the management ladder that you take, you teach fewer and fewer classes. And I wanted to remain in the classroom because that is where I enjoy being.
Barbara Stewart is a secondary chemistry teacher with 25 years teaching experience. She decided to embark on the chartered teacher route in 2003 and graduated in 2006 with a master's degree and a substantial pay rise.
Way back in 1982, I walked into school where I was handed a timetable, copy of the higher syllabus, copy of the O-grade syllabus, and I was told teach. And I did. I went ahead and I taught. Life is very different now. Teaching in Scotland is now an all-graduate profession, and I think we're now getting perhaps towards the point that we're recognising that we need continuous training and developing our skills for everybody. Are you finished with us?
Yep. No, 1 month.
Okay, so which one had the most?
The cola had the most fizz in it, and then the lemonade, and then the sparkling water.
Is that what you would expect? Interested teachers have always done a lot of CPD, and the 35 hours that was brought in with Macron possibly served as breaks on some of us. We only had to do 35 hours outside our working year. With the 35 hours also came the fact that there were more providers giving us courses, the options widened. There's a great variety of providers out there now that there wasn't before the Macron Agreement. Before Macron, things would come into school, I would read about them and I would volunteer to go on courses and get involved. I got involved at authority level doing a few things. After Macron, the charter teacher came out, and that was my obvious path. It was something I wanted to do and something that I felt would be a challenge. It was something I was ready to do at that stage in my career. Charter Teacher Programme has 12 modules in it. It's a master's degree. You have 4 core modules, 4 option modules, and the final 4 modules are a research degree, which you have control over what you choose and what you do. These are very specific modules, right, designed for teachers to develop CPD at a very high level. Each module challenges you to look at yourself and at your practice. Some of them are theory, some of them are practice, most of them combine both. In the 3 years that I took to complete it, which obviously was shorter than the 6 years as expected, I didn't have any holidays. I studied through my holidays. Holiday time was there to write essays, to read books, to download stuff from the internet. Now, you can access most information through the GTC website. And you access CPD There's then the charter teacher bit there, okay?
Right.
That then sets you through everything you need to know, okay?
So, say you started it with Glasgow University and you started it in, September? And you did it for a little while, a couple of years, and then there was a year that you found it difficult. Could you have a break from it?
Not a problem. Basically, you can even change from provider to provider if you want. The EIS is the Educational Institute for Scotland. It's one of the biggest unions in Scottish teaching, and I'm a school-based EIS learning representative and responsible for the staff within my own school. People will come to me for advice on their CPD, and people very often will sit down and they'll consider, what do they want to do, what's available, what do you think I should do? We might run our way through a SWOT analysis where we analyse their strengths, weaknesses, and then we would identify training needs that they had, and we would hopefully work our way through finding some way of meeting those needs. Since I qualified, education has been in a changing cycle. It never stays the same. Teachers can't stay the same. You can no longer think, I know how to do that, because there's always a better way to do it. Courses are continually changing. Children are continually changing. Children learn in different ways. So we have to continually update our skills to improve ourselves, to give our children, who are our clients, a better deal in the classroom.
I think the Macron Agreement is a possible sea change in relationships, both within schools and at national level about teachers and schooling, in the sense that what we are striving for is a much more collegial approach to what's happening in our schools, where teachers' voice is heard and they have an influence on decision making. One of the holy grails associated with professional development is actually making the causal relationship between an intervention or a piece of professional learning, and then how that is translated into student attainment or better student performance or a better, more satisfactory experience for students in schools.
I think the effects of my CPD has on my pupils is that it gives me an affinity with them, because I'm back being a learner and I'm aware of how difficult it is to meet deadlines and the pressures of work. So I'm more understanding of the difficulties that they might have.
Paddy Miller is a home economics teacher at St Andrews High School and completed her chartered teacher status in 2006. She feels her teaching has been invigorated and her pupils are really benefiting from the work she did for the degree.
I came into teaching as a late returner to education. I think it was 95 I did my first degree, and then I went on to do my teacher training postgraduate certificate. Before that, I had been a qualified nurse for 20 years and worked in a local hospital. I feel in the 2 years prior to the Macron Agreement starting and my starting on the charter teacher course for my own personal CPD, I felt I had lost the spark for lifelong learning, for continuing. And one of the reasons, I think, is because as a full-time teacher with a full teaching complement, it's just such a busy, hectic workload. You definitely are rush, busy, and you don't have a lot of time to do things. When I rediscovered my passion for teaching via CPD, in actual fact, it just allowed me to focus on what I was doing as a teacher in my classroom. And I'm sure other teachers will agree that there's a lot of things that you instinctively carry on and are aware of in your observation of the children in the day-to-day running of a class. And it just allowed me to become more focused. Right, the dietary targets for 2005 state that the Scottish people should reduce the consumption of certain foods. Should they reduce A, fat, B, breakfast cereals, C, alcohol, or D, salt? It's had a big effect on my teaching, because I'm now no longer striving or looking for that missing something and getting worn down by feeling that I wasn't having opportunities to go in different directions. I think that I'm more aware of the individuals within my classroom and meeting their needs, and I have a better understanding of some of the learning needs that some children have. I think before I was striving to get into a more managerial role, but then having done the research when undertaking my charter teacher modules, I realised that I really didn't want into management. I was more interested in the individuals and making a difference to them. And I think that's why the charter teacher was meeting my needs more realistically. One of the modules I undertook for my CPD was a reflective practice module, and when I reflected on my own practice and the needs of the children in front of me, I decided that I had to come up with a strategy that would allow them to help to develop their memory skills. One of the strategies I used was to get them to draw around their hand and build up the information on their hand like a mnemonic stroke mind map that would help, because they would always have their hand with them. And if they learned the technique to commit to the long-term memory, then that would in turn help them to recall information to be able to answer exam questions. We've got a thumb and 4 fingers, and I'm going to tell you a word that I want you to write in each of the fingers. Starting with the thumb, you write the word protein. The next finger, you write fat. The middle finger, which is the biggest and tallest finger, you write carbohydrate. After carbohydrate, we've got vitamins. And the last one on your pinky, you write minerals. So what I want you to do now, I want you to put your hand on the table, and I want you to tap your thumb, and I want you to say protein. Protein. Then I want you to tap your next finger and say fat. Protein. Right. So if I went round and asked everybody... One of the major problems with CPD in education is the time factor. We have CPD written in as an extra over and above the working week that we have to undertake, and I think that's par for the course. However, the implementation or the using of the CPD and the things that you're learning to fit it into a busy full-time teaching complement is tricky, and I think we're not quite there on that one yet.
I think some people experience a range of problems when it comes to professional development. If they're pursuing chartered teacher, for example, people worry about the time, because most teachers who would be coming forward for this are probably have young families, they have other responsibilities, etc. They have their own lives beyond their professional life. So it takes a bit of, I would say courage, but it takes quite a significant amount of motivation for teachers to come forward and do that, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's a master's degree, it's a postgraduate rigorous programme across the country with any provider that's giving chartered teacher status to anyone. So I think some thought has to be given to making that attractive to people to come in. Differences between Scotland and England with respect to CPD, the English system seems to be very taken by the notion of impact. We don't use the term impact too much here. We're much more concerned with, well, is it effective? And that's slightly different from impact.